Kia ora and welcome to the Creative Matters podcast, where we have inspiring conversations with New Zealand artists. I'm your host, Mandy Yarkich. These conversations are intimate, uplifting and insightful. The guests on the show have absolutely enriched my life, and I'm sure their stories will have the same effect on you. Thank you so much for joining me to listen to these amazing people speak about what drives them, the way they work, and their personal takes on life. Good morning and welcome back to the Creative Matters podcast. This week I'm speaking with Neville Parker. Neville has been a full-time sculptor and illustrator since 1995, and he opened his first art gallery in 1996. Since then, he has had 7 more distinctly different galleries, including 1 in Auckland, 2 in Marlborough, and 4 in the Nelson Tasman region. He has represented more than 400 artists from a variety of disciplines in Aotearoa. His most recent gallery, Church House Gallery in Motueka, opened in April this year, which was only last month. Neville is interested in helping our creative community members with a desire for a sustainable career in the visual arts to not just survive but to thrive. He is the host of the ARTWONK podcast, an art marketing show for visual artists and craftspeople that unravels the problems and pitfalls of bringing products to market. We have a super interesting chat about how Neville went from the corporate world to becoming an artist with no training and opening his first art gallery in Lorne Street, central Auckland, initially as a way to show his work. He talks about how he has benefited from artist communities and mentors, building relationships, as well as working collaboratively and holistically. We talk about his approach to the art market, his opinion of craft art versus fine art, and his recommendations to artists for approaching a gallery with their work. Calling Neville Parker in Motueka. Hello, Neville.
Hello, Mandy.
It's lovely to meet you. We've been talking since last year, I think. And,
I think.
Yeah, it's great to finally meet you.
You too. It's good to put a face and a voice all together.
Yeah, totally. So you and I have a bit in common. We're both podcasters, or trying to be podcasters. and you're an artist, and then you've also got this really interesting, amazing career as a gallerist and a creator of galleries. So let's go back to 1995, and I know that you had come from a corporate world at that point, and that is when you started making again in 1995, and then in 1996 you opened your first gallery out of 8 galleries. So can you tell us how you went from the corporate world into art making, and then we can talk about how you developed your first gallery and why?
Yeah, definitely. It's a bit scary when you hear the number 8 put in front of the word gallery, doesn't it? Right. So basically, I had always been a maker. From tiny, I've always made things, and the only way my parents could shut me up was to give me a pile of paper and a pencil and invent things for me to draw. So all the way through my career, which involved retail, manufacturing, number of different industries, I always found a way of turning that into a creative enterprise as well. So whether it was redesigning product or redesigning company logos and brands, I really buzzed on that stuff. And really the whole goal was always to learn something new. And around 95, I was actually running a small to mid-sized engineering business in Auckland, and I was looking primarily after the sales and all of the product development, and it had become quite repetitive. You know, it was great the first few times that you go out and you sell a pile of stuff, but after a while it's just a job. I'd redesigned all their products and I'd run out of challenges and decided now was the time to actually just do it. So without any plan, I jumped out of the corporate world and gave up my suit and my watch and my tie. Happy little burning ceremony there, and decided I was going to become an artist.
That's incredible. So
yeah, not much planning.
You didn't go to, you wanted to be a full-time artist.
I knew that I was good at what I did. I'd had a lifetime of people saying, wow, when I made things. What I didn't want to do was go off to art school at that stage. I felt like I'd missed that boat. By the time you hit your mid-30s, you've kind of got a sense of self. And I thought, no, they won't want me. That's where all the young people hang out. I did regret that a couple of times through my journey, because I think there is a sense of community and building a cohort that you rely on in other facets of your creative journey that I probably should have gone and done that. But because of my ignorance of so many things, I had a clean slate, and that gave me freedom to do pretty much anything I wanted.
And at that point, were you thinking about the kind of work that you wanted to make, or were you going in with sort of an open mind and you were keen to explore and experiment?
Oh, this is actually really quite embarrassing to admit. I didn't have a clue. I decided I wanted to make. I knew I could draw. I had been doing kind of cartoony type of characters, and I thought maybe caricature artist could be a place for me. But when I was working in the engineering world, I saw how much waste there was, and especially in steel products. And I knew how cheap it was for me to access. So I decided I'd try cartooning in steel. So I became New Zealand's only foolish cartoonist in steel. And in the first parts, I was making primarily product, because that's what I knew. I knew how to market. I'd spent years learning how to run businesses, learning how to sell, learning how the sales world works. So my first thought was really how to be sustainable. And it took me quite a few years to evolve out of that mindset. I slipped a couple of times back into it because financial needs are what they are. But yeah, so learning my way into the art world took a lot longer than I thought. And that was predominantly because I had probably a little bit too much of a defensive imposter syndrome type of pushback. So I didn't want to ask, because I didn't want to be told I was wrong.
Yeah, it's a tough time at the beginning. So did you actually start selling and making some form of income quite early on, or did you have to kind of be a starving artist for some time?
Yeah, so I have to admit, I've never starved. My wife is very generous with my passion, and I've not had to worry about starving. It's given me the permission to take risks, but my ego is such that I need to perform. So for the first 3 months, which was the savings that I had to cover the mortgage and the household expenses and things, I pretty much played in my studio, which was a garage that we blocked off and said, this is a studio now. And it wasn't until I'd run out of those savings that I finally ventured out. So my first foray into the art world was actually a stall at Victoria Park Market in the days where people used to go there and throng to the market in Auckland. And I did a weekend stallholder operation where I'd come and set up my table and stand nervously and watch.
And hope
and it was
help.
awful. It was heart-wrenching. The first day I sold absolutely nothing. And I was almost in tears the next morning. I didn't want to go and face that again. I'd put out all these things I thought were really cool, and nobody really they didn't even look at me. I thought, damn it, I've really screwed up. This is it. I did know, however, I had skills that I could sell back into the corporate world. So I thought, I'll start planning my humble retreat. Unfortunately for me, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, on the second day, the Sunday, I sold about $900 worth of stuff. And it was like, I'm going to be rich. This is easy. And I discovered the roller coaster that is the world of a maker. Lots of delayed gratification and tiny little spikes of success that keep you buoyed.
Absolutely. And that whole sort of market idea of that way of selling is quite interesting, isn't it? I remember doing a market, I think it was the General Collective Market in Auckland, and I had made my resin and shell rings, which were really popular with like my arty friends and that kind of thing. And so I worked really hard to get a bit of a collection together and had them on the table, feeling proud. And I didn't sell anything either that day. And it was quite sort of potentially crushing, but I just had that thought that it's part of my journey. I cannot let this affect me. This is learning, like, what do I need to do differently for the next market? Do I actually use markets as a way to sell my work? And I kind of didn't let it get to me too much. It was just pretty much a sign that a market wasn't the place I should be selling my work.
Yeah. And that's something that my background had taught me that I had to explore as well. I like that you didn't use it as a judgment, although emotionally it's very hard to remove yourself.
Yeah.
And that was my struggle. That Sunday morning was, the realization this wasn't going to be just a cakewalk. I'm going to have to really work at finding out how this world works. And bear in mind, I was making craft. It was cartoon steel. And it was something new, and new is often, it takes a while for people to establish a relationship. So I had to turn to my marketing mind and start looking at things critically pretty fast.
And then what did you decide? What was the next option for you for selling your work?
Well, I'd got enough money from that exercise to realize that if I can only do $700 to $900 in a weekend, it's still not money to be sneezed at. I should consider with going forward on this while I try and work out what people do want. So I started making more diverse options. I started doing things like CD racks, and again, they were product based, but with a creative flair. And that evolved into being invited by the Traders of the Lost Arts, which was a collective in the market at the time. They said, would you come and join us? Yeah, so I went from being a weekend trader to having the option of trading right throughout the week. And that really encouraged me to have a bit of a deep dive into how these different businesses worked. Because suddenly I was surrounded, there were 9 of us in the collective, all at very different levels of our business in terms of our journeys, all with different products, and all looking for the support of others, but wanting to be individuals and have autonomy. So it was a really incredibly dynamic type of environment to find yourself in. And very quickly, I realized that they needed help when it came to the taxes, the actual accounting, the running of it. The business side was not being taken care of. So I took over that part as part of my membership. And I had been quite a collector leading into this. I had earned good money for a number of years and had a professional partner. So therefore, we were able to shop in galleries quite often. But I never thought about how an artist feels on the other side of the fence, or in fact, how the gallerist felt. I used to be quite scathing of bad service, hated walking into those white boxes where you get somebody pair sort of up from the desk or from their computer, make eye contact maybe, and then ignore you for the rest of your visit. So I decided while in that phase to see whether the team were interested in sort of sales training and really lifting our game. And that involved renegotiating a lease, moving from a back corner right into a central part of the market, and building the relationships that I needed with the market to actually get us there. And that was wonderful. I had the support of the others. Most of the time, they really just didn't want to know. It's like, just do it, Nev. Shut up. Just go do it. Because they were really working on their own businesses. But we, I think from memory, we went like 5 times our turnover as soon as we moved. Wow. And the biggest fear was the increase in cost and also staffing, because we were all working in the space as well as part of our membership. But that taught me very, very quickly that it's worth combining with others, that working holistically and especially collaboratively is the way to make connections, to create community. And I needed that because I was a complete outsider. And through that space, I learned that I really wanted to be on my own because I wanted more space. I was developing my craft pretty quickly. We were moving a lot of product, which was great. So I was getting a chance to explore bigger and more complex ideas. And the art was starting to show because I was actually starting to understand what my creative muscle was and how I could exercise it to bring conversation around. And it turned out humour. Doing the illustrative type artwork meant that I dropped all the barriers that other people were struggling with their concepts. And I wanted to explore that further.
Yeah. Wow, that's so good that you had so much success from that concept. And then is that what sort of encouraged you to create or open up your own gallery space?
Yeah, pretty much. I've never been shy. I was not a good student at all because I was the one that had all of those bloody questions that annoyed everyone because they weren't what the subject was about. I just get curious about things. And a friend of mine used the term aggressive curiosity. He says, I'm inflicted with it. And I think he's quite right. So I wanted to know what it was like to actually have my own space pretty quickly. And because I was comfortable that I understood the business of being in business, I didn't have a whole heap of barriers there to overcome. It was more learning how to express that in a way that I could talk to the market. So I jumped in. So I took a pretty much the same size area as Traders had for my own in the market. And after only 6 months, I had built up enough of an understanding that I realized the market has a ceiling. It has a price expectation. It has a culture. And those things were now my limitations. They weren't the gift that they were in the beginning. They gave me all of the nurturing I needed, but they didn't give me the opportunity to grow. So I cast my net around and I found a place on Lorne Street, the top end of High Street.
In Auckland?
And at that point, in Auckland, yes. And so we're parallel to Queen Street, one street off.
Yeah.
Out my door, I walked across the road, across the little courtyard, up the Kate Shepherd Memorial steps, and I had the Auckland City Art Gallery right in front of me. I had the new gallery to my side. There were, I think it was 11 galleries within 2 minutes walk. So I put myself smack in the middle of the art community because that to me meant that's where the customers are going to be.
That's where you need to be, which was
Yeah.
would have been quite a risk because I guess, retail leasing spaces would have been very expensive in that spot.
They were back then. Well, they still are. But my ability to analyze the situation meant I'd already gone out, done the numbers. And just little things like I sat on the footpath and counted how many people walked in and out of those galleries, worked out how many were on average there in a couple of days throughout a couple of weeks, and figured if I can sell to just 5% of them, I can cover my costs. I just got to work out what they want. And, you had Judith Anderson Gallery and Anna Bibby, and there was, all these wonderful galleries back then that were doing great stuff.
Gallerist.
And yes, yep. And Compendium, who was kind of like, for me, it was like a giant money magnet. Every time I went near there, I spent money. So I saw within that mix variety enough that I thought, yeah, I can bring my stuff here. I can rephrase it. And very quickly I worked out that they didn't rank me at all. I won't name which of the gallerists, but one of them stood in the door with one of their staff, and they'd served me many times as a customer, and looked in and said, "Oh, it's just craft," and walked away. Really? And I thought, "Ooh, cool!
This is a challenge."
It felt like, yeah, exactly. I'm just craft, and I quite enjoyed being just craft. It took a lot of the pressure off.
Yeah, and there's actually nothing that shouldn't be a put down, should it?
It's not. And all my galleries over all the years since, I've made sure that we've represented craft arts because I think the transition between the two and that manky old conversation about whether it's fine art or craft art or whatever is boring and it's outdated.
It is outdated.
There is no.
I think we are moving on from that idea.
It seems to be, and you're not going to see a Rembrandt in a home that doesn't have a piece of furniture somewhere near it and probably some form of bowl or vessel on that or a sculptural form. We live in spaces that are full of all of it. So I figured, okay, well, I'm halfway there. I've got something they don't have.
Was it actually just your work, or did you have other artists' work?
At that point, it was just my work. But that's the moment I started to realize I needed more.
Yeah. Because
I needed to take my voice on a journey, but I did need more. I couldn't jump that far that fast.
But it is
Uh,
amazing that you had the confidence to open up a new gallery when you hadn't done that before and sell your own work, put your own work out there. It's very brave.
To me, the bravery is those who stay in a place they don't want to be, doing something they don't want to do. They're brave because they're actually putting themselves under an enormous amount of pressure every day they face that. I think that it's actually less brave to do what I did, because what I did was I put a little bit extra faith in that I could do it. But failure actually isn't a problem. It's just a new pathway you've got to explore. So maybe I've been very, very lucky with the right type of mentors throughout my life. And people who were, if not risk takers, they were definitely people who they went after things. So I saw that modeled, and it was just a mindset for me. So I thank you for the acknowledgement, because it took some effort. But yeah, the realization was people will buy anything. Everything out there has a market. You've just got to position yourself for the right people at the right time.
Totally.
And these guys had a market already. So I was just looking at how can I hijack what they've established and make some benefit out of it. My primary benefit was I needed the space to pay for itself so I could explore my ideas and continue to grow.
And
what I
that was
had,
a way of supplementing your income as an artist.
yes, yeah. So I went looking for other artists who maybe didn't have the skills I had to get there, but had the chops to belong there. And over the years now, well, we're not really sure, to be honest, but last actual count, we got well above 400 artists that I'd represented. And it's now just the mindset. I don't believe you can do anything on your own. And a gallery is a wonderful space where you can build a team of like-minded people. And yeah, so that was the first stance, was I needed to get my price points up. I needed to get my quality up so they didn't say just. Hate that word. I think if any word could be banned from the English language, just is it.
Yeah, I agree.
Anytime they put just in front of something, oh, it's just going to take an hour. It's a hard hour for sure. Anyway, so that was my first realization that I needed more, and not more than I should do, but more in terms of diversity. And that worked really well, actually. We only ended up with 6 that I represented over that space. And it wasn't any reason that I closed or moved that one, apart from the fact that our daughter was born. And I decided to do the stay-at-home dad thing. My wife had worked hard on her career, and it wasn't a good time for her to step aside. And so I got to take 3 years where I could play with my art. And I thought, kids sleep. How hard can this be?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
We've all experienced that. That is
Yep.
not quite the case, is it?
No, it's not. But, a new business came out of that as well.
So you sold that gallery?
No, that one, I ended up, my lease was up for renewal, so it had a couple of years, and I offered it to the artists that I had in the stable at the time. Nobody was really confident in going forward, and so I just let the lease lapse and closed it.
And just out of interest, did that gallery do quite well in the end in that area?
Oh yes, yeah, we found our niche, and it's probably where I formulated my stylistic plan, which was about diversity. Compendium was doing that already, but she hadn't pushed up into some of the top ends of the art conversation. And the way you talk about art is very different depending on the thing you're selling. At some level, it translates into a discussion about investment and about name and about brand and all those other things, and not about the product or the effort that somebody's put in. And I teetered on the edge of that, where she kept quite well back from it. So we'd found this gap that I thought I'd like to explore further, but we moved to the South Island.
As a gallerist, just going back to when you were in Auckland, and probably in general as a gallerist, are you the type of gallerist who is in the store, in the gallery every day, communicating with people, not the white cube model, obviously?
So we started looking like a white cube, but it changed quite quickly when I realized that by changing the space, I could change the conversation. But yeah, I'm a hands-on person. I love the stories. I'm a storyteller. Most of the art is made from some emotional base, and when you can connect with the artist, find out what it is that was motivating them and learn their story and then share it, it's not selling, it's just an adoption process. You're making these introductions. It's great fun.
I'd love
And
it.
you can't get that buzz without being there. I don't understand absentee landlords or business owners. It's like, nah, it's not a money-making thing.
I agree. And I think that is the most amazing thing about art, is the connections and the way it can sort of help you to build relationships.
Yeah, well, it's all relationships. If you think about it, at many times I've had hundreds of thousands of dollars of stuff sitting in my space. No money's changed hands. Never really worked with a contract. It's always been on reputation and on quality of care. And that endorsement that I get from all of those people giving me their stuff, trusting me with their income streams and their effort predating that moment, the fear of failing them is horrendous. So it's all relationships, the whole thing. And in fact, the whole industry, I think, works that way on different levels.
Yeah.
You've just got to work out where you fit in it.
Yeah. And some galleries have more focus on relationships with their audience or with their artists more than others, you know.
Yeah.
That sort of varies, doesn't it?
People forget galleries are people too. It's not just a building with a sign out the front. It's actually the tone, the atmosphere, the attitude, the culture, the ethics. It's all driven by the people involved. So you're never dealing with an item. It's actually, or a destination. You're dealing with people. And that's an important part of selecting a good gallerist and a gallery and representation, is working out, how does this fit, you know? Yeah. And then, so yes, I moved to the South Island. And I found the culture here so different. I didn't build a community at all in Auckland beyond the street I was on. Your market is driven by so many different things. So many different people have influences over things. So I found coming south, where it's a smaller region, people move more freely. They talk to each other a lot more freely. So the culture I had to adapt and learn completely new skill base.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, Auckland didn't translate well when you moved south. And the Jaffa term popped up, which I refer to as just another friendly Aucklander. And, you know, I found there was a certain amount of hostility for being other. I don't think it mattered whether I was coming from Auckland or wherever. People in the south tend to be very proud of place.
Yes,
they will tell you how many generations they've been here.
Yeah.
I think, and when you watch the press from afar, you do notice how often things, you know, last night I listened to the national program, and the first 4 or 5 minutes of the news was all about Auckland traffic, Auckland rail, Auckland this, Auckland that. I'm sure news happened everywhere. We were all getting rained on.
Yeah.
But that's how some people, they grow up with that. I was lucky. I had this opportunity to move around. So, but we've absolutely loved the South, and it gave me new options.
And when you left Auckland, were you thinking, right, I'm going to open up a second gallery and use the learnings from the first and develop and consolidate and go forward?
No, I thought I was going to become a famous artist because I was going to bury myself into my art. We moved primarily because our daughter, we wanted her to grow up with what we had. My wife and I both grew up on farms. We grew up with space to play, things to build, the freedom and safety that you have in a rural versus an urban environment. And we were looking at what was happening around us thinking, no, we'd like her to have something like that. But we couldn't afford to run our lives in the peripheries of a big centre. So we looked south. And it was economics. It made good sense. We could sell up. And we were in Tarangi at the time. We bought a farm down south. So we gave her what we wanted. And I thought I was going to be an artist working from my space and conquering the world. That didn't stick.
So what happened?
I missed people. I missed community. I discovered the collaboration movement at the same, or in that same phase of time, and that enabled me to go up to Whangarei, where every 2 years they have these events. The collaboration is a a multidiscipline artist camp. We get together for 6-7 days, and for 5 of those we make frantically, and you'll get a blacksmith working alongside a painter, working alongside a jeweler, working alongside a furniture maker, working alongside a weaver, and all of them will make something and then invite the glass person to join in as well. And it's all about collaborative making. And I saw in that a resonance with the actual gallerist world, where it's about collaborating, finding common ideas and stories, and then moving them forward for mutual benefit or gain. So I ended up opening another gallery. It's a good way to meet the community.
Yeah, well, that's a great way to kind of get in. And what were you considering when you were looking for a space for your second gallery? What were you looking for this time?
Down there, so this is in Blenheim. It's a small regional centre. Viticulture is its primary produce. A lot of tourists went through there, and I thought maybe we better look at the tourist industry and what do people who are travelling want. And I decided that since it was a pretty, a dynamic space that was available in terms of the little township, let's just look at locals. So I decided to do a local-only gallery where we represented just Marlborough makers, and that limited me then to the type of art, because it really came down to what was available within the local confines. But that worked well. We had 37 artists, I think, who ended up representing there. And I took in a casual business partner, my mate Bruce. And Bruce, he's a woodie, but used to teach business in Otago. So here is a wood turner who I could sit and have really deep and meaning philosophical questions about, all sorts of things, both art and business. So my worlds collided really well with this individual. And he's a wise man. He's an older man, so Bruce's advice was something that I learned to enjoy, and having that connection alone took the business forward really fast.
That's so great to have that connection, isn't it? And somebody who can sort of help you to build what you already know, I guess.
Yeah, validation's a great old thing. We often have we have knowledge. We just don't always know whether we should trust it. And again, that imposter thing is a really interesting one. You start to doubt things when things go a little sideways, and sometimes that's not your fault. It's just life.
Yeah.
And so having a sounding board was really great.
Yeah, and then you, now to date, you have just opened your 8th gallery, which is the Church House Gallery in Motueka, and that was just last month that you opened that. So that's all very new and fresh.
It's very, very fresh, 2 weeks old. So the last couple of galleries I opened, I actually opened to sell. Each of them were designed around different sectors of the market in the Nelson Tasman region that I saw weren't being fulfilled. And by this stage, I fully understand. It's 30 years. I've now got a real sense of how the art world works. And I wanted to be able to meet different needs. Church House, however, is kind of like my forever home option. So we've opened this one. It took 8 months to find the location. And we've opened it in Motueka, which is a satellite town outside of Nelson. We're 40k out. It's the gateway to Kaharangi and the Tasman National Parks. And Takaka is just across the hill from us. So there's an awful lot of outdoor types of people coming through. Massive playground and holiday ground for Christchurch and pretty much most of the South Island. So this space was designed and chosen on how it felt. We were looking for a place that had a sense of being, a place that created its own personality. So a white box wasn't going to do it. Glass-fronted, brick-walled, concrete-floored, typical gallery space where it's all very bland, very neutral. Doesn't speak well to outdoor people who are out there engaged in lots of textures, smells, colours, etc. And we found this lovely building, which is a hall that was tucked onto the back of a historic church in Mott, that has lovely worm-eaten floors and great light, incredible light, gorgeous little courtyard. So it enables me to have outdoor art. It enables me to have glass, which I love. It has big wall space, and we've opened the first phase, which is our main gallery, our salon space. Our second phase is actually the commercial kitchens, which are all being ripped out at the moment because we took this from a cafe, who were the last tenants, and that will be our exhibition space. And we then have a little separate jeweler studio / gallery so that we can look at the tiny shinies with a decent amount of focus. So this is kind of the culmination of all the things that I've loved in one spot. Very self-indulgent.
How amazing, though! And are you actually living on the property as well? Is your home nearby?
No. I did that before. Yeah, we did that in the past one. And that's 7 day a week. I have probably a smattering of obsessive compulsive in me when it comes to my work. And I was struggling when I did live on site for a gallery project to let go. So I was out mowing the lawns with torches at 10 o'clock so that people could have nice, clean, lovely spaces when they arrive the next day.
Wow.
I've done that.
That's huge.
Never again.
Yeah, that sounds sensible. And it's such a beautiful gallery. I love what you've done with it. I've been following your journey on Instagram. And
thank you.
It's really very gorgeous. And it is the kind of place that tourists and locals as well would want to visit.
We live in an Instagram world, and the marketer in me recognizes that if my space doesn't resonate as itself, then it's going to take a lot more work to drive people to it or to find the works that we represent. And no apologies. I opened the space as a commercial space. I need to sell art. That's what I do. But it's also what the artists who trust me with their work need me to do. They're relying on incomes that we generate. So having a space that translates well online, that's part of what we actually chose as well. That's why it took so long, just finding that magic.
That right space. And you obviously, you're really good at marketing yourself and your artists and your spaces, which comes from your experience in the corporate world as well, doesn't it?
It does. If you're standing in front of a board and having to justify, your annual sales figures and talk about the minutiae of the business as well as the big stuff, you do learn how to maybe put on a veneer. My mask is, like everyone, I'm vulnerable, but I've learned how to present as best I can so that they don't get to me, they get to the other me.
Yeah.
And over time, that's become more blended. So in the early days, I was playing a role. I was playing the game of Gallerist. Now it's actually just who I am.
Which is lovely, isn't it? That it's got to that point.
It's a good feeling to be young enough to still actually understand what's going on and enjoy it for what it is, and yet wise enough to hopefully not make as many of the mistakes as I did as a kid.
Yeah.
Who knows? There's time left.
Yeah, who knows? And do you see yourself as a dealer gallery or a retail space or a gift store or an art gallery?
That's a good one.
Yeah. How do you see yourself?
I've always seen us as a dealer gallery, but we include elements of most of those other spaces because commercial viability is really important. And you go to Te Papa and you can have all of these amazing displays and incredible art, but there's still a gift shop. It's still part of people's desire if they've come and they've heard the stories and they've engaged in an experience, they want to take something away. And the reason that the Suter Gallery in Nelson or Te Papa or pick any regional gallery has a gift shop is because that generates a fair amount of their income. So
I've another audience too, potentially.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's also that acquisitional thing. Sometimes it's promissory where people buy a little thing with a sort of a mental note that when I can afford it, I'm coming back for that other one. Sometimes it's a desire to support what they've just seen. They want to invest some energy or equity into it. And by buying something, they can do that. Sometimes it's purely they've just seen something they've never seen anywhere else and they want to acquire it and own it and treasure it. So, the gift shop side of things is always there. Where I think we're a dealer gallery is that we talk to the art from a place of knowledge. So always interested in talking to you about the artist, the meaning, the journey. Spend a lot of time learning that from the artist, studying them, finding out what they do, why they do it, how they do it, what their unique point of difference is, all those things. And then we communicate them. We don't just let you come to the counter and say, like this place. That's fine. But we're happy to actually spend an hour with somebody just sharing an idea and let them wander away.
And obviously not all dealer galleries do that. And so how do you feel about the fact that you're a self-taught artist yourself and you have, created these art galleries firstly based around your own work? So when did you get to the point of having the confidence to call yourself a dealer gallery? And do you find, how do you find that sort of fits with other dealer galleries and their perceptions of you?
I don't know what others think of me. I know I've had a marked impact on the environments I've been in because we sell a lot of art and you can't be out there competing with others without them either taking some stance on you. I genuinely don't worry about what others think. I worry immensely about what the artists I represent think, and I worry about what the public, the people I deal with think. But to be honest with you, the word think even doesn't come into most of what we do. It's what they feel. We drive everything from an emotional base. How does the space feel? And that makes us choose sound differently. It makes us choose position and light and how we use those things. So if I spend any time actually in my head worrying about that, I get a bit lost quickly because who am I trying to please?
Which is great it's great that you are disciplined in that way, that you're not letting
it sounds a bit political though, doesn't it? Really, it's a mindset that I learned very early on. I had an incredibly tough boss who didn't care what other people thought. He said to me, one day during a rather heated meeting, all they're going to look at is the bottom line. And as long as you treat others fairly and honestly, then that's, they're only going to remember if you cheat them. So he kind of pushed me towards thinking more about being the better me and not worrying about the rest. So how did the other galleries think of us? I genuinely can't tell you. I can tell you that the last two I sold are both still trading, and both are doing well. And I have an enormous amount of respect for the people who took the galleries on. So we don't go actively looking for their clients or their artists. We still see ourselves as part of a community.
Yeah, which is so good. Oh, that's brilliant. I mean, good on you. I've got so much respect for what you've achieved.
Oh, thank you.
It's huge. I have dreams of having a Motueka art gallery, but I don't know anything about retail or any of that kind of stuff, and I think I would struggle. But I love the idea of bringing, creating a space where you can show local art. I just, I would love that.
See, well, and that's something as soon as you said I don't know anything, my pulse goes up and I think, yes, you do. You're a consumer. Most of good service is just simply the service you'd like to receive. Friendly greeting, clean space, the art not just leaning against the wall or popped in the corner, but actually treasured and treated like it's precious. All those things that you would love. It's all you have to do. Right place and a bit of care is generally, it sounds simple, but I think people overcomplicate it because they want to build their ego and their self-aggrandizing a little bit. I'm a shopkeeper. I just happen to deal in beautiful stuff.
Yeah.
And that's all any of the galleries are. We might trade in names or reputations, but we're just shopkeepers.
That's right. Yeah, so true. And there's good shopkeepers and not so good shopkeepers.
Yeah, there are. And we hear about them. It's a really small national community. I follow nearly all the galleries out there that I can find online. Instagram, my feed is just crazy. I spend hours a day. Most evenings, my wife goes to bed before I do, and then I'll put a couple of hours in, just reading, checking. I like that. I'm a boffin. I get into that stuff. But you've got to know what your world is doing if you want to be good at what you do in it.
Totally. You need to stay relevant and all those things. And so can we start just having a little bit of a chat about what artists need to consider when approaching an art gallery, and what kind of things you look for in an artist?
Okay, so what you should consider before you approach an art gallery. Okay, first off, this is one man's view, so you got to weigh it that way, because I'm only able to see it from the stance I'm in. But I believe you're looking for a relationship. If you go into a gallery thinking these guys are going to give me money and I'm going to give them stuff and that's all, you will get someone who treats you like a product producer. I think you definitely, before you approach a gallery, should look at the way they treat the art and the way they treat the artists, their marketing, the type of art they have. You want to look at the way they position themselves. So are they a clean and slick operation, or are they a bit more grungy and kind of earthy? And whichever one fits you, that's part of it. Talk to the staff. And I really don't warm very well to random calls from people who've never been in my gallery saying, would you sell my work? Because they've got, I understand not everyone can transport themselves to my gallery spaces to have a look. But if they've got no real knowledge of me, they're just shopping for an outlet. And I want to have a little more than that. So I encourage the artists to look for that as well. You're going to hand over something that very often you've spent many hours involved in and walk away from it in the hope that they're going to treat it well. So, if it was your child, would you just leave it with a random stranger? Probably not. So that's the first thing. Look for people that you actually can build a relationship with, because it is a relationship. There's a relationship of trust. You're talking finances. It's hard to talk money for a lot of artists. I find it's the most common problem we have. So that's the first thing. Pick good people, or at least people that fit you. I also I don't mind artists from another place contacting me, but I like it if they can explain to me why they think this might be of value to us. I don't mind if they're talking about what's in it for them. But they need to understand that it has to have something for both of us. I don't get up for money. It's just not worth it. I can say, would you like fries with that? So I can earn money. I want to have a life that's joyful.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's hopefully not too waffly, but I think it's one of the areas a lot of the artists that I've met over the years who have problems. And you hear the horror stories often about galleries who treat people badly or who don't pay them. And they didn't do their homework. Yeah. They stepped into something because they were a bit embarrassed to talk about that stuff.
And when an artist comes into your gallery, what do you want to see from them?
Professionalism. And that doesn't mean a suit, a tie, and a slick presentation. It just means understanding you're standing in my house. This is my workspace. Do not push between me and a customer who I'm trying to sell something to, or someone I'm talking to say, excuse me, I made this, which happens surprisingly often.
Really?
Because while I'm talking to that person, I'm representing all the artists that are already there. And you're basically saying, ignore all these people that you're looking after and make me the center of your attention. And that's kind of rude. So, professionalism can look like just your first contact. An email saying, hi, Neville, we've not met. I've got such and such that I work in. I'd really love an opportunity to show it to you. When would be a good time to either call or how can we go forward with this?
So actually make an appointment.
Yeah. And it's hard, especially for a lot of us because we're pretty keyed up. We're feeling the passion. We love our baby. We want to get it out there. But again, you're building a relationship and it's not about just now. It's actually ongoing. You want to make sure that all those things are done well. So when approaching any gallery, having an understanding of what it is that they're doing, who they're talking to, and does your stuff fit? A little bit of research is good.
Yeah. And then how do you decide if an artist comes in with their work? How do you actually decide who you want to represent and what are you actually looking for?
Okay, so all galleries are marketing machines. That's what we are. We build relationships with a market. We can't guarantee sale to anyone, but we can definitely form a whole part of the element that goes into that sale coming. So we already have established who we're talking to by the style of the gallery, the quality of the work, the price points we have. And we do all of these things over and over and over again. Because once we've established a relationship with the market, whatever that is, whether it's a top end, a middle, an entry level, we will continue to talk with those people because we've had success. So if you're wanting to get your work into a gallery, you've got to first establish, is your work suitable for them? Are you going to be adding value to their experience? So if I have Mandy comes in with this wonderful ceramic piece that she's made, and she's seen that I sell ceramics, and she thinks this will be easy for me. He's going to sell my work, and look, it looks exactly like that stuff over there. So I can feel comfortable here. Then you're probably not going to get as far, because what you've done is you've presented me with an option I already have, and that's where some people make the first mistake. They look at galleries who already have things like theirs, and they assume that means it's a friendly space, it's non-hostile, it's going to like what I do, and it will. But whether they can represent you without impacting their existing relationships is their question they're asking themselves. So look for a place where they have similar things, or are talking to a price point that you want to talk to, or are talking to a market you think is a market you'd like to be part of. And then try and find your unique point of difference, your reason for being there. Just to the side, if you were doing a different type of glaze, or a different type of vessel, or a different sculptural form, would at least position you better. So bring in your passion. People often think that they're best by bringing in their product. Oh, I've got this. They sell really, really well. And I'm looking at it thinking, if they sell really, really well, why are you looking for a new gallery? You know, there's something not right there. Whereas I've got this, I think it would be good for your clients. That's a whole different mindset, and it just helps me open myself up to hear it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And are you interested in the artist's stories behind their work? Is that part of what helps you to make the decision?
It is, but that comes second or third, fourth, fifth, somewhere down that line. First off, I got to work out, can we work together? So do you listen when I'm talking to you? Or are you so hell-bent on telling me things about yourself that you've got this prepared thing that comes blurting out? That's why the email can be a good way of breaking the ice, because you get a few things in there that you can sort of seed the conversation with. I'm looking at scale. Do I have space for it? I'm looking at lots of things before I'll actually accept that next phase, which is exploring your story. But everyone's story is worthwhile. Everyone has something interesting to share. So that's a no-brainer. I'm always going to get there anyway.
And do you think about their past experiences, or, how much success they've had, or how well known they are at all? Does that come into the equation?
I do think about it, but not to the point that it's a judgment call. It just gives me different ways of looking at how I'm going to deal with their work. I find people who walk in the door and I'm self-taught, it's the first thing that comes out their voice. And
like
I'm just emerging.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And it's like, but the person who walks into the gallery has no idea where you are on your journey if you've been doing it for 30 years often. They truly are relying on us as a filter. We do the screening, we do the qualifying and making sure that the artist is good. Once you're in, where you're at in your journey is you're here. So I would rather that somebody walked in having made that appointment and said, this is what I make, put it in front of me, and then shut up for a moment and let me actually drink it in with my eyes, instead of giving me all the excuses. And it's so natural. We'll do it. I do it. But that there is a saying that I've always taught my staff, and that is, if you are telling, you're not selling. So the importance there is, it's better to be asking questions of other people than telling them all about yourself. Would you like to hear my story before you start it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there is importance there. Where you've trained or what you've done will come up, but it isn't actually really as important as, are you making something that I want to talk to or about? Can I even talk about it? If it's great big canvases. How am I going to fit that in my tiny space, or whatever?
Yeah. Well, that's so interesting, and I'm sure that kind of, what you're saying will be very helpful for artists considering taking their work to a gallery.
I
And
hope so.
yeah, definitely. That's really interesting. Thank you. So you are an artist yourself, and you sculpt with hard stone and steel, and you're also a pen and ink illustrator. I know that you've taken on a business partner with the Church House Gallery to help you have a little bit more time for your own practice. So how do you actually juggle all the amazing stuff that you do with your galleries and being an artist?
It's never been easy, and I do it poorly. It's a simple answer. My art career has taken a back seat to the galleries over the years. Every time I start getting traction, I open a gallery space that has a different set of needs, and I get excited about learning those. And so my work it's present in the present gallery. It hasn't been present in others because it didn't fit the market I was talking to. I think of the gallery as a making enterprise, though. It's a creative expression. I'm making a space. I'm making relationships. I'm creating engagement, and so I tend to funnel that as my making. But
that's your creative outlet, isn't it? Very much.
It is, yeah. The pen and inks, however, the illustration stuff, I can do at a counter when it's quiet. So I've always sat and drawn. And in fact, this is the first gallery that my business card doesn't include a free piece of artwork. So over the years, I've given away over 6,000 pieces of artwork because my business card was designed as like a little matchbook, the old-fashioned matchbook. Only inside it came with a tiny little picture, normally of a cat or a bear or something that just meant that it reminded me people could pick them up for free. They were there for the art. They weren't there for the money. It was a great way of keeping it sort of grounded in that sense.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we kind of connected through the fact that I have a podcast and you have a podcast. Yeah. And it's actually really nice to be speaking with someone who is a fellow podcaster. And we had a chat before we started recording about, the trials and tribulations of creating a podcast and starting a podcast, not really knowing what you're doing and kind of throwing it out to the public and hoping for the best. So it's an interesting thing, isn't it? And it's really sure nice to kind of share stories. But you are the host and the creator of the ARTWONK podcast. So can you explain the term ARTWONK and tell us a little bit about what you want to achieve through this podcast?
Okay, so an art wonk, a wonk is actually somebody who is interested in detail, it turns out, a boffin by another name. And so the idea that it was a podcast about the details of the art world was kind of that part. There was also that slightly naughty misinterpretation of the way people talk about art. So I thought, well, we're going to be talking about art. So it's part of me has always had a little bit of a thing about wordplay. And the premise of the podcast when I started it was we were in the middle of COVID. We didn't know if we were all going to survive or not, or how things were going to turn out. And I realized I had a unique journey and I had a way of recording it. So I started the first series of the podcast is all about the art world, the art business, how different art galleries work, whether it's a collective or whether it's a white wall gallery, whether it's a main street or it's a destination, all those types of things. So the shows are very much about the business of art. And I tried to tackle things like pricing and how to price your work. And I suspect that with more practice, I could get better at that, but hopefully it gives people insights. And that was kind of the main thing. And to record that in case COVID got us, or it was an unknown.
And I enjoy it. I think it's a great podcast, and it's very informative. I mean, it's kind of almost what we've talked about today. It's kind of just taking some of those ideas further. And are you actually speaking by yourself? Do you like to get guests to speak to as well, or how does that work?
I love guests. You've mastered the Zoom today, which is really helpful. I haven't had time to learn much of that stuff lately. So I tend to just interview people when I'm around them. So I have a series of, I think around 9 or 10 interviews from the last collaboration from artists from all around the world. And where possible, want to just sit and have a chat. Very informal, like the idea of just finding out where they're going, what they're doing. And normally, sadly, the collab interviews are done in a really echoey little room. So there's been all sorts of technical stuff, but it's raw, but it's honest. So that part of it, learning to let go of the need to control has been a really good lesson with podcasting.
And I think in podcasting, people don't really mind how casual it is or if the sound's not perfect. I mean, for me, I do like to have a nice sound, and luckily my husband's a musician, so he helps with things like microphones. But a lot of people don't really care with that kind of thing, and there's such a variety of podcasts and the sort of level, whether it's very casual or quite sort of one host based or more about conversations, and there's just so many different podcasts. But as we were saying, there's not so many art podcasts that I've found.
No, and I'm always hunting for them. I want to learn. I love hearing other people's opinions and ideas. Your show has given me all sorts of insights. It's been great listening to Kiwi artists too, which is really fun. I very often am interviewing people from overseas who are visiting as makers. But the Kiwis that you're talking to just have a very different view again. And I don't think if you get a chance to sit and listen to somebody having a chat on a bus, you'll learn something. I mean, not always stuff you really want to hear, but there's no such thing as a bad conversation. So I find it really interesting, and I love the journey stuff when you're exploring how people got to where they're at, because everyone has a story.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for me, it's just if somebody can benefit in some small way from something someone says, then that's great.
I had a conversation with the curator of a small regional museum, and he was saying that their biggest problem is the lack of photographs being taken these days. I said, what do you mean the lack of photos? They've been taken everywhere. Everyone's phone now takes photos. And he said, yeah, but there used to be this thing you'd send off and get developed. And there'd be a picture of great Uncle Bertie leaning on his Model T Ford or whatever. And he said, we got 100 great Uncle Bertie photos. But in the background there's, young Kate running late for school, sprinting past, or old Mrs. Green hanging out of washing or whatever. And he said, it's that background information that we no longer capture. And I said, so that's actually quite freaky. And he said, yeah. He said, you think about it now, if there's anyone in the background you don't want, you just delete, do it again. So they're not sure. Yes, yep. So they're not sure how they're going to capture these things. But he did say that podcasts were actually giving them an option of capturing. It's the background of life that the anthropologists are really interested in. The people who curate these things are wanting the non-news stories. And I guess in some ways that's part of what we do is, in the gallery we capture them in terms of the relationship between the artist, the art, and the person viewing. In the podcast, it's a bit more intimate because you get to hear the voice and the tone and those other more specific things. So hopefully we're doing good somewhere.
Yeah, I'm sure we are. Let's give ourselves a pat on the back. Yes. But I do love the idea too that we are documenting New Zealand social history in a way. Yeah, which is great. And I love the idea too of coming back in 10 years' time and revisiting the people I've spoken to and just, seeing what the next part of their journey was and sort of where they're heading.
You're touching on a really important part, just back on the gallery thing for a minute. A lot of artists are very much stuck in the now. We're all living on today. We've got to deal with today's issues, understand that. But people forget it's a journey. They do tend to worry about some things it's going to change. And, whether it's the relationship with a gallery, galleries come and go, or your skills come and go, or you have a baby and you want to take some time off, whatever it is. 10 years from now, most of us will be very different in some form. And it is quite cool when you see people sort of celebrating it as, this is where I'm at now, but I know I'm going to change. It's kind of fun because I'm looking forward to seeing their journey too visually.
Yeah. And then, acknowledging the so-called failures or the sort of difficult times within that journey and celebrating the good stuff.
Yeah. And there's a lot to celebrate. We live in a good place. Totally. A little wet sometimes, maybe.
Certainly at the moment, yeah. All right, Neville, well, we might just finish it there. Is there anything else that you wanted to say before we wrap up?
No, just thank you for the service you're doing to the art community. It's not easy getting noticed. And there's a lot of people out there putting an enormous amount of energies into self-promotion with their Instagram and chasing that elusive dream of some kind of acknowledgement. And I think what you're doing is really cool because you're enabling that. And I know the teaching in the background and the other things you're doing are also helping others be better at what they do. So, just a thank you to you for giving this platform for the rest of us because it's really cool.
Thank you very much. That's really kind. And it's been lovely to meet you. And we'll keep in touch. And next time I'm at the top of the South Island, I'll come and visit.
Oh, please do. Yeah.
Yes, I'd love to.
You've got a neat part of the world here.
Yeah, absolutely. We were down there about a year ago, actually, and totally fell in love with the place. Thought about, could we live here? I think we could. But we also love our Muriwai Beach community. So, yeah. But thank you. It's been lovely to meet you. And I'll be watching your journey with interest.
Thank you.